This is Studio Check-In. I am Jackie Blondin, and this is what's on my table. I just want to talk about this piece that's drying here. So I have a really large piece. I have been recording how many times I have been switching out the plastic, and it's coming along. Things are starting to dry out. You can see that there's a change in the tone of the clay. So every time I switch it out, I just replace the towel. It is getting a slight layer of mold on it that I'm seeing develop. I'm hoping in the next day or two, I'm going to start releasing more and more because I need to get it dry. So I've just been going with one layer of plastic over top of the towel, clipping it so that I don't hit it, and then I just record how many times I've switched the towel out. And so far it's been 7 times. I haven't been like super on this because I'm not as anxious about meeting this deadline because I don't need to have the piece completely finished. Okay, I want to talk about what's on my table today. So I'm working on a series, and when I start a series, I start with usually looking at my own work. And so one of the things that I do make is I texturize slabs and then I arc them on the molds that I have. And last week I talked about how I organized my molds finally so that I understood exactly what sizes I needed. It usually isn't a big deal, but when I start to combine them like I did here, I need to know what size they are to make them work. And so these are some of the samples I made initially. So the projects usually start out with exploring my own work, then just, messing around a little bit, and then an idea starts. Then I usually go back and I do some sketches by hand or in combination with working on a digital platform like Canva. Canva is really great, especially because I'm working in circles. I can really quickly iterate a whole bunch of ideas, and I can then move to the full screen to see all the drawings at once, and then I can very quickly see which ones work better. And so I have selected these ones as I move forward. And the idea, I'm not sure it's going to work. I just accept it that this is part of the creative process, and I try. So I made a bunch of pieces. Again, like I said, I start with the sketches, move digitally sometimes, print them out, have them in my studio to work from, and then I make 3-dimensional thumbnails. That's what I call these, when they're just like hashing it out and I don't have too much time invested in them, but I see it through to the end, at least to the bisque stage, and I have glazed some of them so I do know what they look like. And here is an example of the pieces that I'm working kind of from. So I've made these 2. Now you'll see, or I've made several of these, and they're 3-dimensional. What I do want is in the end, I want them to hang on the wall. And I didn't make anything on these ones to make that work. So I have to solve that problem. That's an ongoing thing. So I really like these. These are the same size and arced more. And in this they don't record, or it's hard to draw the other views of this. Drawing it from a top view for me is a lot easier because that's how I'm planning them out. And when I think about the elevation, I'm not sketching that out because that's not as important to me right now, especially because they will be on the wall. I want them to come out from the wall, but I don't want them to be like, projecting too far. And I made other iterations of them where I am playing with scale and decreasing the size of them as they connect and overlap. And as I had all these parts and I was thinking about where to go next, I started kind of playing around with them and putting them together and trying to imagine what they would look like, kind of weaving in and outside of each other. So that's where this idea is coming from. And I don't know what's going to happen. I kind of look at it all like a grand experiment. We'll see what happens. And usually I'm making decisions as I go, but the decisions do start initially with the designing that I do. And I'll just show you where I'm at with this project. So I started a new sketchbook, and I usually skip the first page so I can come back to it if I ever feel inspired. But it helps me to just get in and get dirty. It doesn't matter. I do it messy. In my first sketches, as I was trying to figure this out, I realized my ability to draw circles has really diminished over the last few years, probably because I'm not teaching regularly in a school setting, so I'm not drawing as often. So I then started to rely on my standards, which are my the templates that I have, and playing around with them. And knowing that in the end, I've used cookie cutters and other circles to cut the circles that I'm dealing with. So I know that I need more precision than I need hand-drawn circles. It is a good exercise to do it, and I may go back into this and redo it, but whenever I look at my circles now, they're always a little chunky. Anyways, oh, I forgot to turn the light on. Maybe I'll do that now. La, 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 la. Here it is. There. I don't know if this will make any difference, but here we have the drawings in the sketchbook, like I said, loose by hand and then with the templates. Now, where I'm going with this. So, like I said, I am trying to figure this out. Will they be inside each other and connected like this, or will they be kind of mounted more on the outside? You know, ideally, if I could just attach these, I would, but I don't think they'd survive the glazing session, so I'm not going to do that. Because I could use glaze to connect them, but I don't think that's going to work fully. All right, so to get back to where I was about what's on my table. So I made several discs that are arced and ready to go, and I have them sitting on top of each other. And they're on plastic. Now, as I lifted this up, this is damp. So, like, there's water there. So this is the danger about using plastic to wrap and to not come back to it for several days, is that the moisture from the piece starts to come out and it settles on the plastic itself, or that it's, you know, on top and the water's dripping underneath. So I'm just going to take a look at these guys and see how they are. So I've got two sets. And the upper one is fine. It's the lower one that has moisture on it. That's just kind of saturated. Or not saturated, but dripped down. So these have been under wraps for the good part of a week, because I'm working on another project. And I haven't really looked at these ones yet either. I wanted to show you this though. I have several of these containers, and many of them are actual damp boxes, which means that I have a layer of plaster in each of them, which I can resaturate to keep work in a constant state of workability. So in this box, I have several mounds of the arced discs in here. And all I did for this in a short term, I wet this, squeezed it out, and just put it in the bucket or in the container. So just so you can see, it does have moisture on the sides, a little bit underneath here too. I can see it built up, and it's on the sides here. So this is a temporary solution. It's not a great solution, but all my other damp boxes are filled with other things. So the reason why the damp box with the plaster works better is that any moisture that is dripping down from the piece just goes into the plaster, and it doesn't pool and create problems. And if you have a little puddle in your bucket, then your piece might slake down and get ruined there. And so when I put the pieces in, I specifically put them on the raised areas, knowing that that could be a potential problem. So if you want to learn more about how to make a damp box, I do have a video online about that. And yeah, so here are the other ones. I'll take a peek at those and see how they're doing. Again, there's moisture on the bag. And I don't know if you can see it, but it has dripped down onto the piece, but that just happened because of the movement I was doing. So I'm just using the cloth to wipe up and get them ready for their connections. So these will start to get a little bit more firm, because when I go to start the actual readiness of this, I do take everything out because I need to see everything. But I'll keep it under a larger board with a layer of plastic on it, and then the pieces I just keep kind of lifting and taking off as I need them. And this one has a fair amount of moisture under here. The sides seem to be fine, so it's more interior. So always, when I'm storing stuff, there's always a layer of plastic underneath. And I cut a whole bunch of these smaller ones so that I could be more exact. So I have a ton of plastic. I don't know if you do, but I have a lot. So I have a lot of variations about the ways I can do things. All right, so let's review. What's on my table is the discs for the project. I do plan, and I've kind of discussed the ways that I do that. If you're interested in learning more about the creative process, please hit me up on that. I love teaching, and I would love to be able to help other people make in a easier flow, or at least to understand all the steps that you can follow in order to get to a project with a little bit more ease. And sometimes it does take time to think about what you're doing. So the decision that I have to make today is how to design and how I'm going to be assembling these pieces. And my decision making is being helped by my sketches. And these are top views. When I'm making something that's more specific, that definitely has an outcome in the end where I know what it's going to look like, meaning that I know what the frontal view is going to be, the front view, the side view, and the top view. I will then draw all three views in my designing steps at that stage. But because this project is not that way, and I really don't know the outcome fully yet, I'm just going to work from the top view. So I have a worksheet if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that. And I have a workshop that I'm going to be doing on January 20th. So if you want, hit me up on that. It's going to be online, and I'm going to be going into further detail of things that I used to teach in high school art that are totally applicable for anyone diving into sculpture, especially if you're a potter and you want to kind of diversify some of the things that you're putting out on your table at sales. Doing small sculptures can really elevate your table, and this step will help you along that way. So what else? The learning the lesson is plan ahead. Okay, that's it for studio check-in. I have to go to the dentist right now, so I need to sign off, and I can't redo this because I didn't have the light on. So it is what it is, and that's the way I planned this to be. One take, and that's it. Thanks. See you next time.